How's it going, everyone? My name is Michael SK, and welcome back to Chaos Head Noah. In the last episode, we really got to see why Yua seemed as suspicious as she was. I mean, there's no way that anyone could just kind of be that compatible with Takumi. I mean, there's just no way. I always struggle with his name. I've said it before. There's too many Takus that we've come across. But anyways, yeah, we saw how she really is, and that she seems to be investigating the new generation madness, of which we don't want anything to do with. So we've kind of created some involvement, and it's kind of weird how we're involved. It's a little weird here, a little strange how things have been laid out to us so far. I think we're actually near the end of chapter 1. Somebody told me in the last episode that I kind of ended it right before the end of chapter 1.
何も聞きたくない。時間は一定じゃない。記憶には矛盾がある。視界にはエラーがある。地球は回ってない。これはきっとゲームなんだ。
I mean, I turned on my computer and took a bite out of a fish sausage.
僕じゃない。
The Seroton wallpaper came up on the monitor.
僕がいるべき世界は。
I booted up ESO without the slightest hesitation.
ここじゃないんだ。
Damn, if only I recorded for like 1 minute further. Yep, we got the chapter 1 achievement of Eyes and Eyes, and now we're on Click Me. Beep, beep. Anybody going on the field trip? Get on. Takumi Nishijo lay on the tatami mat, a colored pencil in his hand. This time it was yellow. Just a few minutes ago it had been red. He was happily scribbling with his pencil across the whole of his open sketchbook. Takumi liked to draw. Even during class, he was always scribbling something in the corner of his notebook. The TV was turned on, showing the morning news. For a 4th grader like him, though, the news was boring. He didn't look at it at all. Beep beep, you can't bring more than 300 yen for snacks. He was drawing a yellow bus and pretending he was the bus driver. The bus is full, so off we go, whoosh. He envisioned the scene in his head as he put it onto the page. It wasn't uncommon for him to get too excited and let his pencil go off the sketchbook and onto the tatami mat. Oh yeah, I'm kind of seeing that. Whenever that happened, his little sister Nanami would yell, "Hey, don't mess up the mat." She was a little brat, and he didn't care. He kept drawing anyway. When it came time to draw the passengers on the bus, he suddenly stopped. And then he ripped the sketchbook up. Yesterday, the day before he was supposed to go on the class's fall field trip, he'd suddenly been told by his parents that he couldn't go. He'd been looking forward to it for a long time. He'd been excited the whole day. So when his parents told him, he refused to accept it. He cried and said he was going to go no matter what, but it didn't matter. No matter what he said, his parents wouldn't listen. "We're saying this for your sake, it's impossible for you," that's all they would say. So he hid under his covers and got mad. So mad, he thought he might tear his blanket apart. He hated his parents from the bottom of his heart. That's how important, how critical the field trip was to little 4th grade Takumi. Everybody else got to go, and he didn't. From his perspective, it was totally unfair. In his mind, there were 2 worlds, a lonely world where he was the only resident, and a fun world where everyone else got to be. He hated his teacher and his classmates for going without him. And he hated his parents for telling him he couldn't go. It wasn't long before that hatred boiled over. He bit his lip so hard it drew blood and began to mutter a curse over and over. I wish nobody got to go. The next morning, the phone started ringing really early. His mom would pick it up and answer it, seemingly shaken by something. She'd set it down, and a little later it would ring again. Takumi couldn't sleep at all. It was past 9 a.m. Nanami was sitting on a cushion reading manga. She'd said, "I'll stay home from school with you," the day before, and so there she was. His dad had gone into work and was nowhere to be seen. His mom was so busy answering the phone that she hadn't made breakfast. Today, he didn't need to go to school. Glumly, he began to draw in his sketchbook. But it didn't help, but it did nothing to help. What the fuck? What is that word? I was gonna say that it was some sort of sausage word, but nope, that's a different order of letters. You see, I'm actually really terrible with pronouncing anything. I would say soothe his anger, and just when he'd ripped it up in frustration. Damn, see, I can't speak. There was a note of worry in Nanami's voice. He thought she was talking about his picture, but her eyes were glued to the TV set. Suddenly, she called out for their mom, who was still talking on the phone. Takumi looked disinterestedly over at the TV. It was showing a collapsed bridge on the highway. Only a small 50-meter section of the bridge had collapsed. A bus had been traveling right over the bridge at the time, and had fallen right through the hole. Of course, yes, of course. It was the bus Takumi was supposed to have been on. It was the one his classmates were all on. In a single instant, Takumi was able to envision almost everything that had happened. His classmates were all there. Some were crying, some had faces covered in blood. One was being carried off in a stretcher. A reporter was explaining the accident with a stern expression on his face, but Takumi couldn't understand what he was talking about. His mom was standing in the room's doorway, holding the phone in her hand and looking deathly pale. The fuck is this voice for the mother? I am sorry if that is an actual woman. I am deeply sorry. That does not sound like one. It sounds like somebody pretending to be one. Dead. For some reason, Takumi was sure of it, because everything he was seeing on the TV was just like the scene he'd envisioned last night, in his frustration and anger. In his mind, there was only a single thought, a strange certainty that he had the ability to see the future. He remembered a TV program he'd seen years ago about whether psychic powers were real or not. There was a psychic on the show who could see the future and put their powers to incredible use during the test the show had given. At the time, it was a huge deal. In the test, 12 items were put into 12 boxes numbered 1 to 12, and they had to guess which one be put in which. The psychic would be in another room before anything happened and make their guesses there. Afterward, the show's staff would put the items into the boxes, and the results would be checked. Astonishingly, the psychic was 90% accurate, amazing the rest of the cast. Takumi had been watching the show, and he'd made his own predictions as well. Every single one was right. Of course, he'd never told anybody this. But that's why now he thought that he'd foretold the crash unfolding on the screen. His mother tried to reach down and pick him up, but he slid past her and crawled into the corner of the room. She whispered in a hollow voice, her gaze wandering around the room. Takumi felt like he was about to throw up. It was all rotten, he thought. What good was seeing the future? In that moment, he felt his heart turn cold. For a while, he didn't talk to anyone. He became completely silent. He didn't say a single word to a single person. His parents were already overprotective, but this only made it worse. He gradually started to find them ridiculous and began to keep up his silent act deliberately. That was his way of getting back at his parents, he thought. He was so quiet that they took him to a psychiatrist at a general hospital. He was diagnosed with PTSD. Really? Of course he didn't have PTSD, so he never took the medicine they gave him. He just pretended to take it. His parents never picked up on the act, and even when they saw how worried and miserable they looked, he didn't feel the slightest bit guilty. Interesting. But I don't know, like, obviously this backstory is to help us understand how, you know, some of the contents of the previous episode was to make sense. His ability to kind of see in the future. The problem is that this man is delirious, or delusional, I guess, and it's really difficult to know what's right and wrong and what we're seeing is actually proper, especially the order of events that has been coming to us. It all felt like a lie. The whole world was filled with fiction. It was filled with evil that was out to get me.
いつもあなたが使っているチャットルームへログインして自分で調べてみてください。私の言っていることが間違っていないってわかるはずです。それと、私が言ったことは全部本心です。これだけは信じて。
After her bizarre speech, she added that last sentence, and then left. Of course I couldn't believe her. How could I believe her when she'd lied to me? The everything I was that she'd shown me was something I refused to accept no matter what. I wanted to believe there was no way I could be Shogun. But from the timestamps on the chat log, it was clear that the conversation didn't make sense.
僕は無遊病なの?
At the time that Shogun had sent these messages, I hadn't been asleep. I'd been at Cafe, sure, but I hadn't been asleep. I couldn't have been sleepwalking. Then why didn't I have any memories at all of writing these comments as Shogun? Was my body under somebody else's control? The very idea was ridiculous. I decided what I needed to escape from all the lies was some good old ESO, my other fictional world. In ESO, everything was a lie. It was just a game after all. I wouldn't call it a lie. But in Bestlard, I could be Nightheart, a godlike being. If only the lies and fictions could be like this, I could accept that reality. I wanted to be here forever. What's wrong with that? Or maybe ESO's world was the real one, and this was the fake. This one was the game. Takumi Nishijo was just a fictional character, and my true identity was Nightheart. Yeah, let's roll with that. That seems fun.
ねえ、ナイトハルト。
I called out to the paladin on the screen. Am I controlling you or are you controlling me? Are you the real person and I'm the avatar? What if the world I'm in is a game? If that was the case, it would explain everything. If somebody was staring at me right now, just like how I was staring at Nightheart, whose eyes are those eyes of my eyes and their eyes? The answer to that question would be the player controlling me. I don't know if that's... So the reason why I'm always adding like my own shit to that phrase, by the way, is because I don't know if that's like the proper like line. Obviously, you know, he's asking, you know, whose fucking eyes are these that are looking at me? But there's like a specific way that's like, that's said, I guess, in Japanese. I don't know if there's like a hard translation and that's what we're getting, like word for word, or if it's supposed to be a little different. I've heard variations, or I've seen variations of the statement, so I'm just always throwing in my own, and I always like to specifically say, whose eyes are those eyes? It just rolls a little bit better. If that was the case, then I wish they'd stop sucking at the game so much, but an avatar doesn't get to complain. I don't even know if I read the last line. Whatever. It would explain how Shogun and I could be the same person. It was like with Lizalette. Lizalette and Nightheart couldn't exist in Bastillard at the same time. They both had the same player, me. Maybe in the same way, Takumi Nishijo and Shogun couldn't both exist in this world at the same time. Or maybe it was like a bug. Speaking of bugs, maybe these strange women appearing at the murder cases were all bugs too. Yes, remember it clearly. The images Shogun sent me flashed through my mind, and I winced. I shook my head desperately. I wanted to run away from everything. If there is a player controlling me, then please reset the game. Just start over from character creation. Okay. Works for me. What's going on here? There's a lot of anime. A lot of anime characters. A lot of old ones, too. A little bit mixed in age. I'd say like middle-aged adults, maybe young adults, but seeing a lot of older people. The waiting room at the university hospital was filled to overflowing with old people waiting for their exams. See, there we go. Nothing had changed since I'd first come here several years ago. It was as if time itself had stopped. Everyone wore a gloomy expression. Between that and the stench of disinfectant, the air was heavy and stale. 5 minutes in this room was enough to make you want to kill yourself. I didn't like hospitals. Me neither. The lobbies were filled with people, but once you went down a hallway, it felt like you were completely alone. They'd always really scared me. It felt like the hallways were full of the stench of death. It always seemed to me that death was the true face of a hospital, and if you went further down the hallways, you'd find even more terrifying, awful secrets. So to tell the truth, I didn't want to come, but there was something I had to know, and so I had no choice but to sit here waiting for my exam. Even while I was playing ESO, the words Yua had said kept spinning through my mind. I couldn't concentrate at all. I ended up staying awake all night, imagining all kinds of terrible things, and started to get really scared there being something wrong with me. At last, I decided to go to the hospital, so I could get a doctor to tell me that I was completely normal. I wanted to prove that Yua was the crazy one and not me. I was used to coming to the psych ward of the hospital. When the lady at the front desk had asked me if it was my first time here, I nodded without thinking about it. But it wasn't my first time at all. Ever since the bus accident, my parents had taken me here on a regular basis. When I got to middle school, my doctor told me I was completely cured, and I'd stopped going. It had been about 4.5 years since I'd last come here. Oh, that's a lovely sight. All right, what kind of fun delusion do we want to have here? You know what? Let's go for a bad one. Yeah, I'm sure that'll be fun. The first doctor to look at me was an old man who was supposedly an authority in his field, but he'd only talked to me the first few times before handing me off to one of his students. Of course, his student wasn't that much younger either. If anything, he'd looked older than the first one. That doctor, Dr. Takashino, had said something to me that I'd remembered last night.
ここは病気や怪我だけじゃなくて心にも効く病院なんだよ.
I didn't like the hospital, but he was really nice, and he seemed like a really good guy. Not that this had stopped me. I'd kept up my act of deceiving the adults. It was Dr. Takashina who had seen through my deception, though, and had given me an official diagnosis of completely cured.
あの人に調べてもらえれば.
What would he say if he knew I'd grown up to be a creepy otaku? No, he probably didn't even remember me. Now, you'd be surprised, doctors have really crazy memory. It wasn't long at all before I was called into the exam room. I thought I'd be asked to wait longer, but that wasn't the case at all. What about all those people in the lobby? Maybe they were all fakes, put there by the hospital to make it look busy. Oh yeah, that makes sense, huh? It was a different exam room than the one I'd seen in 4 years ago, or I'd been seen in 4 years ago, but I recognized how he welcomed me when I came in.
Yeah, Nishijo-kun.
Dr. Takashina was looking at me with a cheerful smile. Nothing had changed since I'd last come here 4 years ago. Feeling relieved, I just let loose with everything I was feeling.
先生、助けて。
どうしたんだい?
Damn, are we trying to, like, you know, get healed, or are we just trying to, like, let loose with all of our, you know, our problems in our mind, you know?
変な女が僕にストーカー行為を。このままじゃ学校にも行けないし、家にも一度来られて場所知られてるから安心できないし。
Yeah, this seems like a problem to maybe go to the police with when you think about it.
落ち着いて。
落ち着いてなんていられないよ。あの女異常だ。 僕は正常なんだ。それに岩だけじゃない。悪魔女だって。そうだ、悪魔女が真犯人なんだ。
真犯人？
ニュージェネの犯人だよ。間違いないんだ。僕は事件現場で死体を貼り付けにしてる最中のあの女を見たんだ。
大丈夫だ。何も心配いらないから。とにかく落ち着こう。いいね。
I fell silent. I didn't understand what was fine. But if a professional, a doctor, especially Dr. Takashina, said so, I must be fine. And that's what I told myself. I was getting so excited that I was having trouble breathing. I took a moment to catch my breath. He was staring at me with a grave look on his face. He seemed really serious.
本当に大丈夫なの？
もちろんだよ。
あんな危ない女が僕を、狙ってるのに、なんでそう言い切れるの？
理由を知りたいかい？
I nodded and he sighed a little. He was fiddling a little with the pen in his hands as he spoke.
なぜなら、君の言っている女の人はこの世には存在しないからだよ。
でも
君は自分の妄想に怯えているだけなんだ。
His voice was eerily kind. My body was shaking. It wouldn't stop. Why? He was being so kind.
西条くん、君はその女の人には会っていない。わかるね？
わからないよ。
じゃあ、もっと具体的に言おうか。君はその女の人には会えるはずがないんだ。もう7年間も君はこの病院から一歩も外に出ていないんだからね。
What a twist. What did he mean? Huh? Huh? What was he saying?
君はこの病院の精神科に7年間入院している。そのことはわかるだろう？
I don't understand. I can't understand. Why was he telling me this crazy stuff with a smile on his face? I looked down at the clothes I was wearing. When I'd come here, I was wearing a Sarah t-shirt and a long-sleeved denim shirt over it. I was wearing my only pair of jeans too. Why do you only have one pair of jeans? Hold up. So why was I now wearing a hospital gown? It was a pale green one-piece gown, a simple one that tied in the front with a string. I wasn't wearing pants beneath it. I hope we have the hospital socks. When had I changed clothes?
ここは閉鎖病棟だからお見舞いの人も来ない。入院患者さんも男女で別フロアに分けられていて行き来はできない。精神科の看護師は全員男だし、君の病室は完全に個室。窓もない。つまり君は7年間女性と接触したことがないんだ。
Damn.
君の家族も含めてね。
Ain't that hitting home? No, I'm just kidding.
思い出したかな？
No, it wasn't true. I wasn't locked in some hospital room. I lived alone in Shibuya. I was a top-ranked player in ESO. I even went to school 2 or 3 times a week. And I talked to the nurse at the front desk just a minute ago. Is this your first time here? Yes, then please fill out this form.
嘘に決まってる。
本当にそう思うのかい？
He wrote something on my chart as he whispered. I couldn't read what he was writing. It wasn't Japanese. English? No German.
だとしたら君の精神はまだ異常だっていうことだよ。もうしばらくは入院が必要だね。
He glanced at me. His eyes were filled with pity. He'd never looked at me like that before. I fell to my knees, helpless. The tears came quickly. Oh, now I see that's right. All of my memories were just illusions of mine. I was the abnormal one. I was the crazy one. What an awful ending. But, well, it didn't even matter now. Even if the memories were just a delusion, they weren't particularly good ones anyway. And I could just create new ones, right? Maybe I could have a world where nothing scary happened. I could be social and outgoing and get good grades. Girls would love me. All my friends would be girls who looked good enough to be models. And they'd all be in love with me. And then I could suggest that we live under the same roof. That would be the beginning of fun, bittersweet, and slightly crazy days for me. What kind of laugh was that? I forced myself to laugh. It didn't really work. My expression froze up. I wanted to die. Well, that was a fucking depressing ass delusion. Suddenly I realized I was sitting on the sofa in the lobby. My body was soaked with a terrible sweat. A cold chill ran down my spine. I started looking around the room, unsure of what had just happened. There was an old hunched-up woman sitting next to me. Her eyes were buried so deep in her wrinkles that I couldn't tell if she was awake or not. I looked up at the clock above the reception counter and saw that I'd been here in the lobby for over an hour. Wow. Was that just a dream? Had I fallen asleep while I was waiting since I hadn't slept at all last night? I sighed deeply. What an awful dream. It was a dream, right? I tried to remember my life until yesterday. It was okay, my memories were all connected. I had encountered the demon girl at the crime scene, and then Yua had lied to me and threatened me. And then I'd come to this hospital to prove that I was sane. Yeah, it was all fine. I would have preferred if it was all a delusion, of course. Maybe I would have been happier if I could have made a new world and had a lot of fun with it. I was just that sick of this world. In the end, I waited another 2 hours, god damn, before they finally called my name. What, did we go to the emergency room? A United States emergency room? Because they will not see you for like 5 hours. You could be bleeding out and you have to wait in the waiting room behind all the people who have like the sniffles. That is a real problem, by the way. Oh, and good luck with the hospital bill, of course. When I went into the exam room, it was the same as I had seen in my dream. I thought for a minute I was back in the dream again. Dr. Takashina looked just like he had in my dream too. Maybe he just hadn't changed much over the past 4 years.
今日はどうしました?
He didn't start by telling me that all my memories were delusions, but...
西条です。
ん? ああ、これはご丁寧に。高階です。はじめまして。
He bowed to me. I couldn't say anything. Nice to meet you. And that's what he just said. He'd forgotten me. It made sense. It had been 4 years after all. I guess if you're a doctor for like a big-ass hospital or something, the likeliness of remembering people is a little less likely, but I think if you're like the doctor of like a local doctor's office, and if you go there maybe like once a year or maybe once every couple of years or something along those lines, I'm sure they'd remember you. I thought that he, of all people, would remember me. I kind of had that hope, but whether it was fair or not. When that hope was shattered, it just made me sadder. It felt like I didn't matter. He looked in my eye as he spoke, but I looked away.
無遊病かどうか調べてほしいと書いてあるが、何かあったのかな?
That's right. That's what I had said on the form, but it didn't matter now, if he didn't even remember me.
別にいいじゃん。
Yeah, you right.
先生が覚えてようが覚えてなかろうが関係ないっしょ。最初の目的を忘れちゃダメ。
Oh, right. I hadn't come here to see Dr. Takashina. I'd come to prove that I was normal. Seeing him again was just a bonus. What did it matter if he had forgotten me? If Seraton hadn't reminded me, I might have broke down right there. Whew.
自分でも知らないうちに外に出かけててパソコンで文章打っててそれを全く覚えてないなんてありえますか?
おお。
知り合いからそう指摘されて混乱しちゃって。
その知り合いの人が冗談を言っているっていう可能性はあると思うかい?
Yua's eyes had been dead serious. She didn't look like she was teasing me or anything. If nothing else, she certainly seemed to believe what she was saying.
わかりません。
なるほど。ちなみに、その知り合いとはどういう関係だろう？恋人？
は？
What was this guy talking about? What did that have to do with anything?
いや、言い方が悪かったかな。じゃあ言い直そう。その知り合いの人は、君が意識もないまま歩き回っているのを実際に目撃したのかな？
Oh, was that what he meant? I shook my head.
じゃあ、証拠はないわけだ。
I shook my head again.
そいつ、探偵気取りって、いろいろ証拠を突きつけてきて。
そういうことか。ちなみに、これまでにも無遊病の兆候はあったかい？
いえ。
朝目覚めたらいつものベッドじゃなくて違う場所で寝てたっていうことは過去に一度でもあった？
いえ。
じゃあその知り合いに言われたのが初めてっていうことだね。
I nodded weakly before forcing myself to speak.
僕、寝てないんです。
もしかして怖いのかな？でもそんなに深刻になる必要はないよ。
いや、その。
That wasn't it. That wasn't what I wanted to say. But I wasn't sure how to explain it, and I couldn't get my thoughts together in my head. I lost my chance to speak. He scribbled something in his chart before spinning around to turn away from me, and then leaned forward toward the back of the exam room.
葉月くん、ちょっと。
Hey, yo, who's this? Why do we have an achievement for this? Four Eyes Fan. Why? What? A young nurse came over. The doctor showed her my chart and said something softly to her, and then she quickly went back further into the room. What was that about? He turned to face me again, then in a gentle tone, he explained to me what sleepwalking was, When someone falls asleep, he said, first they enter REM sleep, and then non-REM sleep. Oh, don't worry, I use my Apple Watch to measure all that. I got to learn a little bit more about, like, REM sleep, deep sleep, core sleep, all that shit. It's pretty interesting stuff, too. You're actually not even supposed to be in a deep sleep for a long period of time during the night. I think you're mostly in REM. No, REM is your entry, and I guess core is where you want to be. REM sleep was when the body was asleep, but the brain was close to fully awake. Non-REM sleep was a deeper sleep, when the brain also rested.
無遊病はノンレム睡眠の時に起きやすいって言われてる。脳が通常の活動をしていないから、普通の受け答えとかは成立しにくいけど、ちゃんと返事もするし、階段などを踏み外さずに上り下りすることだってできる。原因としては、精神的なストレスを抱えてる時になりやすいんだ。子供に多い症状だけど、成人でもよくある症状なんだよ。これでわかっただろ？深刻になることはないって言った意味が。
Okay, so story time. Whenever I was a computer science major, one of my first classes whenever I got to university was logic-based. So actually learning about algorithms and doing them out on paper. It was a huge pain in the ass, but it was something that I had to learn, and it was actually pretty interesting in the long run. Coming up to midterms and also final exams and all that, I literally had dreams of working out these algorithms, throwing numbers in and seeing what my output would be, working it out bit by bit, step by step. It was awful because when I woke up, I felt like I didn't get all that sleep that I wanted. So while I was technically asleep, my brain wasn't. I guess you can call that maybe a form of sleepwalking, but I wasn't actually accomplishing anything physically. My mind was just continuing to work, and it fucking sucked. But I wasn't sleeping, and yet I was still doing things I didn't remember. The whole time I'd been supposedly typing into that chat as Shogun in room 37. I thought I'd been playing ESO. Was that what you'd call sleepwalking? I wanted to ask, but the doctor just kept talking.
無遊病かどうかを調べる方法としてはいくつかある。一番手っ取り早いのはここのベッドで寝てもらうことだね。ただ特定条件じゃないと発生しない場合もあるかもしれない。例えば自分のベッドじゃないとダメとか。意識がない状態で出歩くにしても目的もなくふらふらと歩き続けるのか。それとも何らかの強迫観念があってそれに影響されて何らかの一連の目的を持って出歩いているのか。それに君の精神状態についても特定の条件下じゃないとダメかもしれない。自宅のベッドの上ならリラックスできるけどここじゃリラックスのしようがないわけだ。どうする？とりあえず寝ていってみるかい？
It wouldn't hurt to try. I could make sure I wasn't sleepwalking, and then ask him the question I'd come to ask. I've never been offered this sort of shit before. Getting to take a nap? Really? Count me the fuck in. The nurse, Hazuki, led me to a bed in the back. It wasn't meant for sleeping, so it was hard and uncomfortable. Still, it was better than the sofa I was used to sleeping on.
3時間くらいしたら起こしに来ますから。
This nurse was really cute. Yeah, definitely. I wonder why. I lay on the bed glancing at her while trying to make sure our eyes didn't meet. She had a somewhat young, helpless-looking face, and the air of someone whose life wasn't really working out the way they wanted it to. Well, that's depressing. Still, she went about her work quickly and steadily. She felt like one of those girls from an old H game. One set in a hospital with lots of rape, of course.
できるだけ目は離さないようにしていますので、安心して眠ってくださいね。
In other words, she'd be watching to make sure I didn't get up and start walking around.
それでは、ごゆっくり。
She smiled a little before closing the curtains and leaving. Surrounded by the white curtains, I let out a deep breath. I could hear lots of things, the voice of the doctor as he examined his patients, the other nurses walking around, even the door as it opened and closed. It was pretty hard to relax. Could I really sleep like this? I'd say yeah. I mean, the homie, like, really just stays up all night playing video games. I think you're gonna get some sleep. I tried to close my eyes just to see if it would work. The second I did, the Guro images that Shogun sent and the sight of the corpse nailed to the wall came flooding back to me. I forced myself to think of Serotan instead. Oh man, another one? I mean, I could be mean here. We could do another bad delusion of some sort. Or no delusion at all, to be honest. But where's the fun in that? Now that I know how this system works. Let's do a bad one. Yeah, I'm feeling fucked up today. Inside my delusion, she was happily bouncing up and down. Next, she whispered to me in a sweet voice. Uh-huh. Sarah, you're so cute. Sarah. Sarah was my ideal wife, after all. No girl could ever be better than her. 3D? Who cares about 3D? I couldn't wait to go home. Sarah would be waiting for me with a big smile and a welcome home. Just wait, Serotan. I'll be coming for you. Alright, what does the bad choice here bring us? I'm kind of curious, you know? She opened the door and was met with a smiling doctor.
今日はどうしました?
She ignored the question and looked around the room. The exam room wasn't very big. There was a blank medical chart on the desk next to another one covered in writing. The writing was in a language that wasn't Japanese. They called her a demon. Everybody did, even her patients, excuse me. Whether she had been a demon from the start or became one because everyone called her that anyway, that didn't matter anymore. In the past month, she'd killed 8 people. The public called her mad, but from her perspective, that number wasn't anything special at all. She was a demon after all.
何か気になりますか? もし気になるものがあるなら言ってください。どかしますから。
He was a good doctor. He cared about making his patients comfortable. She smiled, opened her bag, and slowly took out a 24-centimeter knife with a willow leaf blade.
それとも、もっと広い部屋にかえ...
The doctor's expression froze at the sight of the knife. She smiled gently at the sight of his fear. This doctor would be the 9th. This wasn't part of her original plan, but there is no harm in adding one more. She put her bag on the ground and silently walked over to the doctor with long strides, before leaping and stabbing him with the knife. The knife slid right past the ribs and to the heart. That one strike was enough to kill. The body slumped forward toward her and then fell to the ground. Now it was an unmoving thing. She withdrew her knife and knocked the thing away from or with her elbow. It's time for number 10. Just as the corpse fell forward, its white jacket stained with crimson, she heard the scream of a nurse who had come to investigate the ruckus. She slashed at the nurse with the knife, stepping on the doctor's body to get closer. It sprayed of fresh blood. It wasn't a fatal wound, but a jagged slash that had carved into the kind-looking nurse's face. Now that's a scream. The nurse screamed and fell to the ground, hands over the wound, blood pouring through her fingers. She ignored them and walked toward the exam room. The 10th victim wouldn't be that nurse. It needed to be something special. 10 was a big number. 2 whole digits. It had to be her original target. The other patients and nurses were already running and screaming. The whole place was in an uproar, but none of their voices reached her ears. She looked around, certain that he was somewhere nearby. Her eyes fell on the curtain. The curtain surrounded by a tiny space the size of a small walk-in closet. There was probably a bed inside. There you are. She shook with joy, warmth spread just below her abdomen at the thought of finally being able to kill him. Haha, that's cute. She slowly approached the curtain, but instead of opening it, she slashed through it with her knife. When she peered through the hole she'd made, she saw a bed, just as she'd thought, and he was lying on it. Found you. When she saw him, she couldn't control herself anymore. She flung open the curtains and stood by the bed. He was asleep, a pained expression on his face. Gently, she wrapped her finger in his hair, softly stroking his head. He didn't wake up. She held the knife blade downward. She raised her hand high. She aimed for his heart. A single strike, just like the doctor. That would be enough to kill him. With a look of ecstasy on her face, she brought down the weapon. Nice. Now that's a delusion right there. I leapt up only to find myself still on the bed. My heart was pounding fast. I looked up at my chest. There was no stab wound there, no blood either. I was unharmed. I looked around. The curtain was closed. It hadn't been slashed with any knife. I slowly put a hand up to the curtain. For a moment, I had a delusion that if I opened it, I'd see Hazuki and the doctor lying on the ground covered in blood.
夢だよな。
But I didn't have the courage to open the curtain. What if I did and saw an ocean of blood? What if the demon girl was there waiting with a knife? I was too scared to move. And then... the curtain was flung open right in front of me. I screamed and fell off the bed. Yeah, it's usually what sound I make whenever I see a woman. It's all good. I looked up. Hazuki was looking down at me with wide eyes. There was no blood on her white outfit and no gaping wound on her face.
ごめんなさい。驚かせてしまって。起きているとは思わなかったので。
いえ。
I looked so pathetic. I slowly staggered to my feet, eyes pointed firmly at the ground. My heart was still pounding hard. I was so glad it was just a dream, though. It was like something out of a horror movie.
本当に大丈夫?
She looked at me worried. I was so embarrassed that I couldn't look up. The most I could do was nod a few times.
少しうなされていたみたいでしたけど。
怖い夢を見て。
そう。
What time is it? How long was I asleep? I asked Hazuki. Surprisingly, I'd been out for 3 whole hours. I must have been more tired than I thought.
でも、無遊病の症状は結局出ませんでしたよ。
Her tone was reassuring.
まあ、今日はたまたま症状が出なかっただけかもしれないから、無遊病でないっていう断定はできないですけど。
No, I'm not a sleepwalker. I needed to ask the question I came here for. But I didn't see the doctor. Hazuki offered me a sheet of paper. I looked at it. There were various questions for me to answer.
それはあなたの心理状態を把握するためのチェックシートです。心理テストのようなものね。それを書いてくれたら今日はもう帰っていいって先生が。
先生は？
ごめんなさい。ずっと診察が続いてて。来週まで様子を見て、まだ改善が見られないようならもう一度来てくださいって。
To be fair, he wasn't my personal physician or anything like that. He'd probably just given Hazuki his nurse instructions for me. But then, what was the point of even coming to this hospital? I wanted to ask about the awful possibility that I was being controlled by somebody who wasn't me. But Hazuki looked so apologetic that I didn't have the courage to demand to see the doctor. I decided to just fill out the worksheet she'd given me. I'd written out the symptoms I was experiencing on the back, I decided, and then I could come back next week to talk to him again.
チェックシートは質問に対してイエスかノーかだけを答える簡単なものですから。当てはまる点があったらイエスにチェックしてくださいね。今後の西條さんの治療に対する参考にしますから、じっくり考えて答えてください。
Hazuki was kind enough to give me a full explanation. Some of the questions on the test were weird, not the sorts of things that you'd expect to be asked at a hospital. It was almost like one of those online personality quizzes. What would answering these questions tell me? Hazuki was staring at me. She wasn't getting ready to leave. It didn't seem like she just had nothing better to do. She was observing me, watching over me. Being watched made me nervous, and so it was hard to think about the questions, but I suppose that was just a nurse's job. I decided to just forget it and fill out the sheet. Oh my god. We actually have to fill this shit out. Oh no. Oh my god. Okay, what do we got here? What do we fucking have here? When you need to talk to someone, do you prefer to text instead of call? Kinda, because like you can kind of explain things a little bit better, I think. I mean, either one. I'll check it. Do you sometimes have tinnitus? No, I don't think so. Have you ever felt someone's eyes on you and turned around? Fuck yeah, whenever I go running, goddamn. I'm gonna treat this like this is me, by the way. You guys are gonna learn about me here. Do stationary objects sometimes seem to be moving toward you? No. Have you ever had a premonition that turned out to be right? I think we all have. Have you ever checked a digital clock and seen the same numbers repeat? Yes, I've gone to school. Have you cried within the last month? No, I don't cry. Can you masturbate just using your imagination? Fuck no. Wait, what kind of question is that? That is on a oh my god. Wow, all right. Can you stay focused on just one mental image? Why are these questions here? No. No, I don't think so. Can you fantasize about something with your eyes open? Yeah. Does the front of an automobile ever look like a fuck yeah. Do you have difficulty going to the bathroom after watching a horror movie? No. How do I scroll down? There we go. Scroll wheel. Not a fan of haunted houses. Yeah. When you start reading a book, do you lose track of time and immerse yourself? Yeah. Do you think aliens are real? Yeah. When you look at your horoscope, is it always... I don't even look at that. That shit's fucking bullshit. Do you get motion sickness easily? No. Do you think God exists? No. Do you have a sixth sense? No. When you sleep, do you dream in full color? I want to say yeah, but I don't pay too much attention to that. When you are asleep, do you ever understand that you are dreaming? Not full-on lucid dreams, no, but I don't know. What about you guys? That's an interesting one right there. I think sometimes I do. So, yeah, I'll say yeah. Have you experienced partial memory loss? Yeah, I actually can't remember a lot of events from elementary through high school. Yeah, high school even. And even parts of college. University is still pretty clear, but yeah, I've got a lot of memory loss, and I'm really not that old, so it's kind of not a good thing to think about, but that happens. Do you have trouble making eye contact with others? No, I just make it awkward. Does the side of a lemon make your mouth full of saliva? No. When other people yawn, do you yawn too? Yep. Okay.
はい、お疲れ様でした。
When I checked off the last few questions, Hazuki spoke to me before I had a chance to say anything to her. I'd been really embarrassed having her watch me the whole time. Maybe my face had been red. I quietly handed over the worksheet, trying not to look at her face. I hadn't had any time to write my symptoms on the back.
それでは、待合室でお待ちください。お薬が出てますから。
薬?
I was getting some kind of prescription? The doctor hadn't said a word about that.
ええ、先生の指示で。弱い精神安定剤です。ぐっすり眠れるようになるし、副作用などもありませんよ。
Woohoo, thanks, Doc. I was appreciative, but also the thought of waiting in that lobby again made me feel miserable. You know, it's just one of those sacrifices that we have to make. Well, that was fun. Value of death. Life is suffering caused by desire. To end the suffering, we must end desire. Yeah, sure. Let's roll with that. It's some Persona shit right there. Alrighty, we'll end it here. We'll call that a good episode. I think that was pretty good, you know? Not too crazy. Click me. I just might. Yeah, that one was fun. I wasn't expecting a little questionnaire at the end, but now you guys know a little bit more about me. But I want to know a little bit more about you. Answer some of these questions for me, I guess. Let me know what answers you guys got to make. Actually, out of curiosity, if it's not too much of a spoiler, I'm sure that the answers that we selected have some sort of connection. I also feel like the beginning questions that we were asked at the start of all this, there were 3 of them, have some sort of connection to what we just saw there, because I'm pretty sure that I clicked glasses as one of the beginning questions, so that's probably why the nurse, for some reason, had glasses. I don't know where the swimsuit shit is gonna pop in, but we at least saw the glasses, I think. I think that's where that achievement came from as well. I could be totally wrong, who knows. But thank you all for watching this episode. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, all that fancy shit, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy.